Name your price and never speak to my son again. The words landed like a punch in the stomach. Maya Lane had only just started clearing away the breakfast dishes in the sleek, cold kitchen of the Wells estate. It was her third day on the job. Temp work, nothing more but those words. They weren't part of any cleaning contract. She froze, a ceramic plate still in her gloved hand. The boy she had just been laughing with, stacking colorful toy trains on the hardwood floor, peeked out from behind the island counter. Eli Wells, 6 years old, silent as a shadow, but bright in ways that made her chest ache. He didn't say a word now either, but his fingers clutched a wooden puzzle piece in his right hand. A tiny square, chipped at the edge, clenched tight like a secret. Maya turned, and there he was, Graham Wells, the elusive billionaire. The kind people only saw in business magazines or behind tinted black car windows. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit. Rain still slicked the shoulders of his coat, even though the storm had passed an hour ago. His eyes didn't flicker, not even when his son looked at him. I said, Graham repeated, voice even colder than the stainless steel counters, name your price. Maya blinked. Excuse me. He stepped forward, placing a manila envelope on the counter between them. There's $10,000 in here. Cash. It's yours. Just walk out. Don't come back. And more importantly, never speak to my son again. She stared at the envelope, then at him. I wasn't trying to. I don't care what you were trying to do. His tone was final. He gets attached. People leave. He doesn't understand why. And I'm not going to explain it to him every time. Maya's stomach twisted. I didn't do anything but clean. He came to me. We played for 10 minutes. Graham finally looked down at his son. Only for a second. Eli was now sitting cross-legged near the door, running his toy train along an invisible track on the floor. One hand still clutched that single puzzle piece. You're not trained, Graham said. You're not qualified. He doesn't need emotional interference. He needs structure. He needs someone to listen, Maya said quietly. Graham's jaw tightened. Take the money. You need it. I checked. Maya flinched. You what? You work for a temp agency. 3 evictions in the last 5 years. Credit score below 500. Student debt unpaid. I did my homework before you set foot in this house. Maya's hands curled into fists. She wanted to scream, to throw the envelope back at his smug face. But then, Eli let out a soft sound. Not a word. Just a small, breathy whistle from a toy train. Graham didn't notice. Maya did. Eli's eyes were on her. Not fearful. Not empty. Hopeful. She exhaled. You're right. I do need the money. Graham reached for the envelope. But I'm not taking it, she said, stepping back. Not for that. He paused. Maya turned to Eli, kneeling to meet his eyes. She spoke softly. You keep playing with your train, okay? I'm going to head out now. Eli didn't move, but he slowly reached out and handed her the wooden puzzle piece. No explanation. No gesture. Just the piece. Her fingers brushed his as she took it. Warm. Real. Maya stood. Graham said nothing as she passed him. But as her hand touched the door handle, she spoke over her shoulder. Some messes, she said, gripping the puzzle piece in her palm, are worth staying for. Then she walked out into the rain. But what she didn't know was this. Eli had never given anyone a puzzle piece before. Not even his father. Rain turned to mist by morning. Maya Lane sat on the edge of her bed in a tiny studio apartment where peeling wallpaper curled like tired petals. The wooden puzzle piece sat on her nightstand, next to a cracked mug and a half-dead succulent. She hadn't slept much. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Eli's. Not the billionaire. The boy. He had looked at her like she mattered. Like he'd been waiting for someone to finally see him. And she'd walked away. Maya sighed and reached for her phone. 0 messages. 0 missed calls. Her only client today had canceled. Rent was due in 6 days. She rubbed her temples. $10,000. She could have said yes. Taken the money. Moved. Started fresh. But she didn't. Because of a kid who didn't speak. Because of a moment that didn't make sense. Because of a puzzle piece. Back at the Wells estate, Graham sat in his home office, staring at security footage on a wide monitor. He watched Maya's last few minutes in the kitchen. Rewound. Watched again. The moment when Eli handed her the puzzle piece, frame by frame. He paused the screen, enlarged, zoomed in on Eli's face. There was something there. Not fear, not confusion, something softer. Damn it, he muttered, pushing back from the desk. He glanced at the stack of unread business proposals on the table, then back at the screen. He reached for the phone. Lorna, he said when the housekeeper picked up. He's going to try to find her. Keep him in the playroom. Mrs. Lorna Grant, a woman of few words but deep intuition, simply replied, he already did. Maya had no intention of coming back. But fate and Eli had other plans. At 3:47 p.m., a knock came at her apartment door. Sharp, rhythmic. Maya hesitated, peeking through the peephole. No one. Then she heard it. Toot. A tiny train whistle. She opened the door slowly. There, standing in a narrow hallway, was Eli Wells. Alone, wearing one sneaker and one rain boot. His backpack unzipped, toy train in hand, and clutched in his other hand another puzzle piece. Eli, she whispered, kneeling. Oh my God, how did you get here? He looked at her. No words, just held out the piece. Maya didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Where's your... Footsteps pounded from the stairwell. Eli. Graham's voice cut through the air like a blade. He stormed into view, raincoat flapping, eyes wild. When he saw Eli standing at Maya's door, a complex fury and fear collided in his face. What the hell is wrong with you? He barked. Maya flinched. I should ask you that, she shot back. He's 6. He showed up alone. That's not a him problem. That's a you problem. You think I meant for this to happen? Graham's voice cracked. He ran off. From inside a secured house. You think I don't check the gates twice? Maya stood between him and Eli. He ran off to find me. Graham stared at her like she'd just spoken a foreign language. Eli reached up and tugged her sleeve. Soft, deliberate. She turned. He placed the second puzzle piece in her hand. His fingers lingered. Maya looked up at Graham. I'm not taking your money, she said. But I'm also not pretending this didn't happen. He swallowed hard. I'm calling security, he muttered. You're not coming near him again. Too late, Maya replied, her voice calm. He already chose. 30 minutes later, Maya was gone. Again, but this time, so was the puzzle piece. She sat in the back of a city bus, staring at both pieces in her palm. They didn't fit together, but somehow they felt complete. Behind her, someone sneezed. A baby cried. She didn't hear it. All she could hear was that tiny whistle, and her own voice whispering back, some messes are worth staying for. What none of them knew, yet, was that Eli had just broken a rule he'd never broken before. He'd left the house for someone. He'd never even left the room. Graham Wells stood by the front door, one hand braced against the frame, watching Eli through the reflection of the glass. He didn't yell again, didn't move, just watched. His son sat cross-legged in the foyer, shoeless now, small feet tapping a silent rhythm against the marble floor. In his lap, a handful of puzzle pieces. Not a full set, just the ones he'd saved. Hoarded, almost. Like tiny clues only he understood. Mrs. Grant knelt beside him. Are we finishing it today, love? She asked softly. Eli didn't respond. He rarely did. But he placed one piece next to another. Wrong edge. Still didn't fit. He didn't try again. Instead, he turned his head toward the hallway, toward the door Maya had walked out of. Mrs. Grant looked up at Graham. Her eyes said what her lips didn't. He was waiting. That night, Graham sat in his study. Lights dimmed, a glass of untouched scotch on the desk. He watched the security footage again, frame by frame. Maya kneeling. Eli handing her the puzzle piece. Then, today's footage, Eli leaving the house. Not running. Walking. Purposeful. Graham fast-forwarded. Eli exiting the gate. Then silence. Then, the hallway of Maya's building. Eli's whistle. Her door opening. Her voice catching. Graham paused. It was the only time Eli had gone more than 30 feet from the house in his life. He didn't know what it meant, but something in his chest hurt. Maya didn't expect the call. Not from him. Not after that stairwell scene. But it came 2 days later. Her phone lit up with a number she didn't recognize. She almost let it ring out, but instinct made her swipe. Hello. This is Graham Wells. She didn't speak. He cleared his throat. I need you to come back. Maya laughed once, sharp. You can keep your money. It's not about money, he said. Silence stretched. Then, he hasn't eaten. Won't sleep. Barely moves. He only picks up the puzzle pieces. Maya's voice softened. That's how he speaks. I don't speak puzzle, Graham replied quietly. Maya inhaled, then exhaled. I'll come. But not as staff. Not as a project. I come for him. Another pause. Then understood. Back at the house, Eli sat by the sunroom window, the last ray of afternoon light washing over his pale blue socks. In front of him, a circle of train tracks, empty in the middle. When Maya walked in, she didn't speak. She just sat. Eli didn't look at her. Not right away. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out another piece. He placed it in front of her. Maya picked it up, examined it, then smiled. It's a corner piece, she whispered. The best place to begin. Eli looked at her. Then, barely, he nodded. From the hallway, Graham saw it. That tiny nod. It felt louder than a scream. He didn't go in, didn't interrupt. Instead, he leaned against the wall and let something strange ripple through him. Hope. That night, Maya made grilled cheese. Simple. Eli sat at the table. He didn't eat much, but he sat. Next to her, his train rested on the windowsill, and the puzzle, now 3 pieces stronger, lay between them. Graham stood in the doorway, tie loose, sleeves rolled. He didn't speak until Maya said, You're welcome to sit, too. He hesitated, then stepped in. 3 chairs, 2 filled. He took the third. The silence fell, deep but not heavy. It was the silence of 3 people sharing something. Not words, but presence. And for Eli, that was enough. The house had never felt quiet in this way before. It wasn't the absence of sound. It was the presence of peace. Later that night, Maya sat on the porch steps, arms wrapped around her knees, puzzle pieces in her lap. Graham joined her. No suit, just a man with tired eyes. I used to think silence was safe, he said. Maya looked up, and now, he looked toward the dim window where Eli slept. Now I think maybe I was just afraid of the wrong kind of noise. Maya smiled faintly. Some messes are worth staying for. He looked at her, but didn't reply. Not yet. Inside, Eli stirred in his sleep. One hand curled around a train whistle. The other around a missing puzzle piece. He didn't know it yet. But tomorrow he'd speak. Not with words, but with something even louder. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and burnt toast. It was 7:13 a.m. Maya moved fast, flipping another slice of French toast onto a chipped ceramic plate. She hadn't planned to stay overnight. But then again, nothing about the last few days had been planned. Least of all, the way Eli had let her hold his hand as he fell asleep. He hadn't even flinched. Not once. Mrs. Grant walked in, hair in her usual tight bun, holding a small pail of eggs from the garden. Her expression softened slightly at the sight of Maya at the stove. You planning on replacing me? She muttered. Maya smiled. Never. You're the soul of this house. Mrs. Grant raised a brow. This house didn't have a soul before you. That made Maya pause, just long enough to burn the next slice. Eli entered 5 minutes later, barefoot, blanket still over his shoulders like a cape. In his right hand, the train whistle. He climbed onto a kitchen stool without being prompted. Maya placed a plate in front of him. No words, just a nod. He didn't eat right away. Instead, he placed the train whistle gently beside the fork, like a talisman, then reached into his pocket, another puzzle piece. He handed it to her without looking. Maya stared. Thank you, she whispered. Eli turned the plate slightly, one corner pointing toward her. An invitation. She sat. He ate. Graham entered 10 minutes later. Showered. Shaven. Shirt ironed to military precision. He paused in the doorway, watching the scene. His son, eating, sitting, not screaming, not hiding. Maya, quietly matching his rhythm, not pushing, not probing. He almost smiled. Almost. After breakfast, Maya asked if Eli could spend time in the garden. Graham raised an eyebrow. He doesn't usually like, I know, she interrupted gently, but he's curious today. He touched the window. Twice. Graham glanced toward the boy, now stacking train tracks on the tile floor, then nodded once. Fine. The garden was wilder than Maya expected. Overgrown hedges, cracked stone paths, a once proud fountain now filled with fallen leaves. But Eli didn't seem to mind. He crouched near a patch of dandelions, letting the seeds tickle his fingertips. Maya watched from a nearby bench, letting him explore. Then she heard it, a soft toot from the train whistle. She looked up. Eli pointed at the broken fountain, then held up his puzzle piece. Maya stood, approached. The base of the fountain had a small carved shape, a square, jagged edge, just like the piece. "You think this is where it belongs?" she asked. Eli nodded. She crouched, aligned the puzzle piece against the worn stone. It didn't fit, of course, but somehow it still felt right. Later, Graham found her in the study. "You took him outside," he said. "He wanted to go." "That's not the point." "Then what is?" Graham stepped closer. "I don't want him to get used to things that won't last." Maya stood her ground. "Then maybe you should make sure they do." He looked away. She softened. "He's not fragile, Graham. He's just been shelled up, waiting for someone to knock." Graham's voice dropped. "And you think you're the one?" "No," she said. "I think he is." That night, Eli did something new. He brought Maya a drawing. Crayons. Scribbled. Abstract. But in the center, 3 stick figures. One tall, one small, one with curly hair. Maya stared. Eli pressed it in her hands, then pointed to the curly one. Then at her. Then smiled. Not wide, but real. Maya nearly cried. Graham saw it from the stairs. Felt something twist inside. Not pain. Something older. Guilt? Gratitude? After Maya left for the night, Graham stood in Eli's doorway. The boy was asleep. One hand curled around the train whistle. The other, resting on the drawing. Graham stepped inside, knelt. Whispered, "What did she do to you?" Then corrected himself. "What did you do to her?" He didn't expect an answer. But Eli stirred. Just enough. And for the first time in years, Graham whispered, "Thank you." What none of them knew. Mrs. Grant had just called someone from Graham's past. Someone who wasn't going to like this new arrangement. It was a Tuesday. Gray skies. Light wind. The kind of day people forgot unless something unforgettable happened. At 9:26 a.m., something did. Maya was kneeling on the living room rug, holding up a toy giraffe and doing a ridiculous voice that made Mrs. Grant chuckle from the hallway. Eli stared at her, expression unreadable. Then, for the first time, he reached out and touched her hand. Not by accident. On purpose. Her heart skipped. She didn't speak. Just waited. Eli picked up the giraffe, mimicked her silly voice with a tiny puff of air, like a whisper of joy, and looked her dead in the eye. Maya froze. Eli blinked, then smiled, just slightly. Graham walked in seconds later, phone to his ear. He saw Maya. "Eli, the giraffe." Something felt different. "Maya," he said, "I need a minute." Maya turned, still stunned. "Graham," she whispered. "He said something." Graham lowered the phone. "What?" he said. Graham's chest tightened. "Are you sure?" Maya nodded. "I know what I heard." Eli was already back to his train tracks, as if nothing monumental had just occurred. But it had. Later that day, Maya stood outside on the back porch, phone in hand, calling her sister in Arizona. "I don't know what to do," she said. "This boy, he's changing. Fast." Her sister chuckled. "So are you." Maya looked down at the puzzle piece on the railing. Eli had handed it to her after lunch. No explanation. She ran her fingers over the edge. "I think he's trying to say something." "Maybe you already heard him," her sister said. "Just not with words." Back inside, Graham had a visitor. Her name was Dr. Felice Monroe, a developmental psychologist Graham had consulted 3 years ago after his wife's passing. She was sharp, blunt, and not impressed by Maya. "You letting a cleaning lady run your child's development?" she asked. She's not trained." Dr. Monroe cut him off. "Not certified, not even a registered caretaker." She got him to speak. "One syllable doesn't mean progress. It means luck." Graham's jaw clenched. "It means hope." Dr. Monroe stared at him for a long beat, then said, "That's the most human thing I've heard you say in years." That night, Maya found Eli standing in front of the fountain. Same puzzle piece. Same spot. She walked over, sat beside him. "I know it doesn't fit," she said softly, "but maybe that's the point. Maybe we don't either." Eli looked up at her, then placed the puzzle piece in her hand, followed by another, then another. 3 in total. He never shared more than one at a time. Maya's chest filled with warmth. "I think you're trying to tell me a story," she said. Eli didn't respond. but he did smile. Inside, Mrs. Grant cleaned the hallway when she overheard Dr. Monroe on the phone. Yes, the woman said sharply. She's emotionally manipulating the boy. I'm documenting everything. Mrs. Grant's hand tightened around the mop handle. She knew a storm was coming, and Maya had no idea. The next morning, Graham entered the kitchen in a quiet panic. Maya, he said, we need to talk. Her face fell. What's wrong? There's a custody review. The courts want to revisit Eli's case. Dr. Monroe has contacts. She thinks you're interfering. Maya stiffened. Interfering? She's building a case. If it goes sideways, I could lose primary custody. Maya went still. Because of me? Graham didn't answer. He didn't have to. That night, Maya almost didn't come back. She sat outside in her car, puzzle pieces on the dashboard, train whistle in her hand. Rain tapped on the windshield. Then toot. A soft, deliberate sound. She looked up. Eli stood by the front door, barefoot, holding another puzzle piece against the glass. Maya stepped out, walked through the rain. Kneeling, she placed the whistle in his hand. He raised it to his lips. Ma, he whispered. Not a sound, but a shape, a meaning. He'd waited for her. Again, what Maya didn't know was that Dr. Monroe had already submitted a formal complaint, and social services was coming. It started with a knock. Firm, rhythmic, official. Maya froze in the hallway, her fingers still damp from helping Eli brush his teeth. His train set sat half-assembled on the floor beside them, a wooden bridge hanging in midair, unfinished like the day itself. Mrs. Grant opened the door. Her eyes widened. Two people stood outside, one in a gray blazer, clutching a leather folder. The other held a badge. Inside the living room, Graham paced. What do you mean an in-home evaluation? The woman in the blazer, case manager Sophia Klein, remained calm. There's been a formal report from a licensed psychologist. Allegations of unsupervised behavioral interference by an untrained adult. You mean Maya? Klein nodded. We've been told she has no certifications, no guardianship rights, and no legal permission to interact with Eli in a therapeutic context. She's not a therapist, Graham said tightly. She's just Maya. Klein didn't smile. She's not listed on any approved contact forms. Yet she's had unsupervised access to your child for over 40 hours. Graham flinched. I allowed it. That's not enough, she replied. Not anymore. Maya stood at the bottom of the stairs, frozen, Eli clinging silently to her side. One hand on her scarf, the other holding a puzzle piece. Is this because of Dr. Monroe? Maya asked. Klein turned. We're not allowed to name the complainant. I already know who it is. Klein stepped forward. You're going to need to leave the property. Effective immediately. Eli let out a small sound. It wasn't a word. It was a protest. A soft, broken train whistle from his lips. Maya knelt, her hands on his shoulders. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't want to go. Eli's eyes welled, but he didn't cry. He did something worse. He backed away, then dropped the puzzle piece. Graham caught up to her at the door. This wasn't supposed to happen. Maya didn't look at him, but it did. I'll fix it. Can you? I have lawyers. Influence. But not custody, she said. Not if they decide you're unstable. Graham's silence was deafening. She looked up. He's not a client. He's not a project. He's your son. He nodded, ashamed. And I'm not a threat, she said. I know. Then why does it feel like I'm being punished for helping? She walked her car. Rain again. It always seemed to rain when things cracked open. As she started the engine, she glanced at the dashboard. 3 puzzle pieces. The fourth was still on the rug, where Eli had dropped it. She left the car running, and stepped out, walked back toward the house. Mrs. Grant opened the door before she could knock. You forgot something, the old woman said softly. She held out the puzzle piece. Maya took it. Her hand shook. Mrs. Grant leaned closer. This house is made of ice and grief, she whispered. But you brought something warm. Maya bit her lip. Will you watch him? I always have. But not like I do. Mrs. Grant's voice cracked. No, not like you do. Eli didn't sleep that night. He curled into a ball on the floor of his playroom, surrounded by train tracks he wouldn't touch. He clutched the train whistle, but didn't blow it. His father watched from the hallway, helpless. He didn't know how to fix it. Not this time. The next day, Graham called Dr. Monroe. He told her to withdraw the report. She refused. She's a liability, Monroe snapped. You're emotional. And emotion is the enemy of consistency in autistic therapy. She's the only thing he's responded to in 3 years. Then maybe the boy's regression is bigger than you thought. Graham hung up, called his lawyer. Maya sat in her apartment, back to the wall, phone on silent. She hadn't eaten, hadn't slept, just watched the rain blur the window. She held the 4th puzzle piece in her hand. Didn't know why. Didn't let go. At the Wells house, Eli disappeared. Not far, but far enough. Mrs. Grant found the back door open. Panic set in. Graham called security, then ran barefoot into the garden, shouting, searching, until he saw it, by the broken fountain. Eli, kneeling, placing the puzzle piece inside the crack Maya had shown him days ago. It still didn't fit, but he didn't care. He sat, silent, still, waiting. What neither of them knew was that Maya had just received a letter from family court with her name on it. The letter was printed on thick ivory paper. Maya read it 3 times before her hands stopped shaking. Due to an anonymous report, your presence at the Wells residence has been formally prohibited until further investigation, she laughed. It wasn't funny, but if she didn't laugh, she'd scream. Her breath fogged the glass of her apartment window. Outside, the rain had finally stopped, but the air still felt heavy. Pressurized, like something big was about to crack. At the Wells estate, Graham sat in Eli's room, watching his son stare at the ceiling. The boy hadn't moved in hours. Not since the fountain. Not since the piece didn't fit. Graham had tried everything, food, toys, even the train whistle, but Eli remained still. Then quietly he whispered, Maya. It was barely audible, but Graham heard it. His stomach twisted. That night, he knocked on a door he never thought he would. Maya opened it slowly. She didn't speak. Neither did he. He just held up a bag. Inside, Eli's drawing, the whistle, and 4 puzzle pieces. Please, he said. Maya stepped aside. They sat at her small kitchen table, silence stretching between them. Then Maya began. When I was 16, my little brother stopped speaking. Graham didn't move. His name was Cody. Sweetest boy alive. Funny, messy. Obsessed with dinosaurs. She smiled just for a second. Then it vanished. One night, I was supposed to babysit. But I lied. Said I had homework. Went to a party instead. She paused. Her voice broke. There was a fire. Electrical. He was trapped in the kitchen. No one could reach him in time. Graham's breath caught. Maya's eyes glistened. He was 6. Just like Eli. Silence. Maya looked down at the puzzle pieces. I think helping your son makes me feel like I'm finally doing something right. Like I'm piecing together something I broke. Graham leaned forward. You didn't break him. I didn't save him, and yet you've saved mine. They stared at each other. A moment held, raw and unguarded. Then Maya said, I know I'm not his family. I know this was never meant to be more than a temp job. But it is. Graham's voice was barely more than a whisper. It is now. Back at the estate, Mrs. Grant tucked Eli into bed. But he didn't sleep. He kept glancing at the door, waiting. Later that night, Maya and Graham stood on opposite ends of her apartment. I can't promise the courts won't come after you, Graham said. But I'll fight it. I'll fight her. Maya shook her head. It's not about fighting. He frowned. It's about choosing, she said. You have to choose what kind of father you want to be. The one who controls everything, or the one who listens. And what if I choose wrong? You already did, Maya replied. Now choose again. He left close to midnight. Left her with the whistle. Left her with the pieces. But not alone. The next morning, a package arrived at Maya's door. Inside, court documents. And a photograph. Eli's. With the words, temporary guardianship hearing, October 14th. She read the date again. That was his birthday. Meanwhile, Eli sat in the garden. No shoes. Just pajamas and 1 sock. Beside him, a tiny wooden train. He blew softly into the whistle. Then placed the 5th puzzle piece at the base of the fountain. It still didn't fit, but he smiled anyway. The game was changing, but Maya had finally remembered how to play. The next morning, Mrs. Grant was already in the kitchen before sunrise. She wore her usual apron, same sturdy shoes, but her hands trembled slightly as she wiped down the countertops. She'd lived in the Wells estate for nearly 3 decades. Longer than any of Graham's suits had hung in the closet. Longer than his wife had worn her wedding ring. And she'd never broken a rule. Until now. Because keeping Maya away was a rule she was ready to break. Eli wandered in just after 6 a.m. Still barefoot. Still silent. But he had something in his hand. Another puzzle piece. Mrs. Grant crouched beside him. You found another one, didn't you, little fox? He handed it to her. Not a place. Just a hold. As if saying, take care of this. Until she comes back. Mrs. Grant swallowed a lump in her throat. I'll keep it warm, she whispered. Meanwhile, at City Hall, Maya stood before the administrative clerk's window. Her palms were sweaty. She hated courthouses. The smell of old paper and authority. The echo of too many no-s. I'm here to file a response to a temporary guardianship challenge, she said. The clerk didn't look up. Name of minor? Eli Wells. Relation? Maya hesitated, then said softly, none. But he gave me a puzzle piece. The clerk paused, looked up, and smiled. That's better than a birth certificate. Back at the house, Graham was having his own kind of confrontation. Dr. Monroe sat across from him in his home office, tapping a manicured nail on the edge of a folder. You're gambling everything on a woman with no credentials, no assets, and no legal standing. Graham didn't blink. I'm not gambling. I'm choosing. She could take him away from you. She wouldn't. You're that sure. She's already had the chance. She walked away instead. Dr. Monroe leaned back. You're not the man I used to work with. No, Graham said. Thank God. Outside the door, Mrs. Grant listened. She didn't mean to, but her timing had always been perfect. And now, for the first time in years, she stepped into a room she'd always tiptoed around. Graham turned. Mrs. Grant, I need a word. Dr. Monroe opened her mouth, but Mrs. Grant raised one hand. Privately, the psychologist scoffed, but stood. I'll be downstairs, drafting my report. She left. Mrs. Grant closed the door, then walked to the bookshelf, pulled down a photo album Graham hadn't touched in years. Opened it, pointed to a page. She was here, the old woman said, before you lost her. She helped your wife. Graham frowned. Who? Maya's mother. Graham blinked. What? She was a night nurse. The one who helped in the final months. She read to Eli. Sang. Brought him puzzle books when he couldn't sleep. That was Maya's mother. She never told you. I think she didn't even know I knew. Silence. Mrs. Grant turned to him. She's not a stranger. She's an echo. Across town, Maya sat in a tiny cafe, fingers wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug. Her sister had just arrived, baby in tow. You look like hell, her sister said, sliding into the booth. I feel worse. You still thinking of walking away? I'm thinking of doing what's right. Sometimes, her sister said, those are the same thing. Maya laughed softly, then pulled out the latest puzzle piece. Her sister stared. Is that number 6? Maya nodded. It's the only thing that makes sense right now. Back at the Wells estate, Eli walked into Graham's study. He never came in here, but today he did. Holding something, a folded piece of paper. Graham took it carefully, opened it. A drawing. 3 stick figures. One tall, one small, and one with curly hair. Again, but this time, they were all holding puzzle pieces. Graham felt something crack inside him. He picked up the phone. Dialed. Bring her back, he said. What none of them saw. Dr. Monroe, sitting in her car down the street. Watching, writing, and beneath the passenger seat, a signed petition for emergency custody transfer. Maya returned at dusk. Not with a suitcase. Not with promises. Just herself. And a worn envelope filled with puzzle pieces, folded drawings, and a single train whistle. She stepped through the front gate slowly, unsure if the place would feel the same. It didn't. It felt heavier. Like the house knew this might be her last time walking through the garden. Graham opened the front door before she even knocked. Their eyes met. He didn't speak. Neither did she. But Eli did. From behind his father's legs, he peeked out. Train in one hand. New puzzle piece in the other. Maya, he whispered. Inside, the house shifted. Not literally, but in the air. The way the floor creaked like it recognized her steps. The way Eli clung to her scarf like it was a safety rail on a train going too fast. She sat with him on the floor. No words. Just trains and wood and silence. And Graham watched from the hallway. His hands clenched tighter than he realized. Later that night, Maya found him in the study, the same place where everything had started. He stood by the fireplace, glass in hand, not drinking. "Thank you for coming back," he said. "I didn't do it for you." "I know." Silence. Then Graham said, "He drew something again." Maya nodded. "He always draws when he's scared." "What is he scared of now?" She met his eyes. "You." Graham flinched. "I'm trying," he said. "I know, but it's not enough, is it?" Maya didn't answer. Instead, she stepped forward. "I read the file," she said. "The court file. The one Dr. Monroe filed. She's tried to use my presence to prove instability in your parenting. She'll lose." "She won't." "Why not?" "Because you're lying to yourself, Graham. You still think this is about control." Graham's face darkened. "She wants him," Maya continued. "Not because she cares, but because if she wins, she's right. About you. About everything." "And what about you?" he asked, voice sharp. "What do you want, Maya?" She hesitated, then whispered, "I just want him to keep choosing." That night, as Maya tucked Eli in, he placed a puzzle piece on her knee. A centerpiece this time. No edges. No corners. She kissed his forehead. "Messy, beautiful boy," she said softly. "I don't know where I fit, either." He touched her hand, then the train whistle, then placed the piece inside his pillowcase. Maya smiled, but her heart was already breaking. Downstairs, Graham stared at an email on his laptop. Subject: Witness deposition. Maya Lane attached. An official court summons. The next morning, everything cracked. Dr. Monroe showed up without warning, clipboard in hand, legal documents in the other. "I'm here for an emergency home inspection." Graham stood firm. "You're not authorized." "I am," she snapped, under Clause 47B. "Filed this morning." "You've been served." Mrs. Grant appeared behind him, arms crossed. "Not in my house, you're not." "It's not your house." "No, but I'm the one who sees what happens here. And what you're doing. That's not protection. That's punishment." Monroe ignored her. Turned to Maya. "You're coming with me." Maya stepped forward. "Not without him." Monroe smiled coldly. "Then we'll let the court decide how they feel about that." Hours later, Maya sat outside a courtroom. Alone. Graham hadn't come. Not yet. Eli hadn't been allowed to. She held the envelope tighter in her lap, knuckles white. Inside, 8 puzzle pieces. All given freely. All incomplete. Just like her. Back at the house, Graham stood in Eli's room. The boy was asleep, his hand resting on a drawing. This time, only 2 figures. One tall, one small. No curly-haired stick figure. Maya was gone. So Eli had erased her. Graham finally felt it. The cost of doing nothing. What he didn't know. Maya had just taken the stand. And Monroe was smiling. Because Graham wasn't in the building. And Eli was no longer just a child. He was a case. The courtroom smelled like old paper and resignation. Maya sat on the witness stand, fingers tightening around her scarf like it was an anchor in open water. Across the room, Dr. Felice Monroe leaned back, legs crossed, her smile tight, her confidence unshakable. "Mississippi Lane," the judge said, flipping through the file, "you have no legal training, no therapeutic license, and no formal guardianship. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And yet, you interacted with the child in question, Eli Wells, on a daily basis for more than 4 weeks." "I did. Without oversight. I had permission. From his father." "Yes." The judge looked unimpressed. "A father who's not here today." Maya's heart dropped. Graham wasn't coming. Meanwhile, at the Wells estate, Graham was in his car. He'd been on the phone for 45 minutes. 2 lawyers, a publicist, and a CFO. Everyone told him the same thing. Stay out of it. Let the court do its thing. "They're not just reviewing custody," the lawyer had said. "They're reviewing you." Graham gripped the steering wheel. "She's not the threat here." "No," the lawyer said. "But she's the evidence." Back in court, Monroe stood. Her voice rang through the chamber like a closing door. "Eli Wells is a nonverbal autistic child. He requires structured, professional care. Mississippi Lane is neither structured nor professional. Her emotional attachment is understandable, but dangerous." "Objection," Maya's court-appointed advocate tried. "Overruled," the judge said. Maya swallowed hard. Monroe turned to her. Do you love him, Mississippi Lane? The room stilled. Maya looked up. Yes, she said. More than anything. Do you think love is enough to care for a special needs child? No. Then why are you here? Maya held up the envelope. 8 puzzle pieces inside. He gave me these. One at a time. He doesn't speak to the world the way we do. But this. She shook the envelope gently. This is how he speaks. And I was listening. Monroe smirked. The court doesn't speak in metaphors. No, Maya whispered. But he does. Outside the courtroom, Graham finally slammed the door shut on his car. Too late. The judge cleared her throat. In light of the absence of legal guardianship, the lack of medical certification, and the report filed by Dr. Monroe, I hereby issue a temporary no-contact order between Mississippi Maya Lane and the minor, Eli Wells. Maya blinked. The room spun. No, she whispered. You will vacate all residential access within 24 hours, the judge continued. Any attempt to contact the child during this period will be considered a violation of state custody protection statutes. Monroe exhaled like she'd just crossed a finish line. Maya just sat there, still, frozen, and broken. That night, the house was silent. Too silent. Mrs. Grant brought Eli a bowl of soup. He didn't touch it, didn't look up. She placed a train whistle beside him. He pushed it off the table, then lay down, on the floor. No blanket, no pillow, just the wood, and didn't move. Graham stood outside the room, watching, feeling, hating himself. He walked into the study, opened the folder Monroe had left behind. Inside, graphs, assessments, charts, but no puzzle pieces, no drawings, no Maya, just data, just distance. He closed it. Hard. At Maya's apartment, she sat by the window, envelope in her lap. Empty. She'd left the pieces behind. It felt like betrayal. Felt like silence. Felt like Cody all over again. She whispered to no one. I'm sorry. Then toot. A faint whistle. But not from her window. From her phone. A voicemail. From a blocked number. She hit play. Silence. Then a child's breath. Then a whisper. Then static. She dropped the phone and cried. What she didn't know was that Eli had found a way to reach her, even when the law said he couldn't, even when his father didn't know. The voicemail played his ears on loop. Maya. One word. One breath. One boy. Graham sat in the dark, eyes unfocused, hand trembling around his phone. He hadn't eaten, hadn't slept. Eli hadn't either. In the living room, puzzle pieces were scattered across the floor like breadcrumbs leading nowhere. Because Maya was gone, and everything had stopped working, Mrs. Grant entered softly, holding a small envelope. This came for you. He took it, opened it. Inside, a single puzzle piece, with a note, the one he kept in his shoe. Graham stared at it. Back corner, jagged edge. It didn't match anything. It felt final. He called his lawyer. I'm withdrawing from the previous strategy. You can't. I can. You'll lose full custody. I already lost something worse. He hung up, put on his coat, and drove. Maya was packing when the knock came. She didn't answer it. The court had ordered her out by morning. She had 6 boxes, 1 suitcase, and a heart full of nothing. But the knock didn't stop. She opened the door, and there he was, soaked in rain, breathless, holding the puzzle piece. You left one, he said. I had to. No, you didn't. I made you. Silence. Then Graham reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a document. Signed. Stamped. Legal. What is this? He stepped forward. It's guardianship rights. Co-signature. Shared custody. If you'll accept it. Maya blinked. What? I want you back in his life. Legally. Permanently. You'll lose everything. I don't care. Graham, he called your name. After the court banned you. He found my phone. Left you that message. Maya's knees buckled slightly. Graham steadied her. She touched the paper. Are you sure? No. Then why? He looked her dead in the eye. Because some messes are worth staying for. That night, they sat at her table. 2 cups of tea. 1 empty envelope between them. And a plan. It was insane. It was reckless. It was Eli's only chance. The next morning, Maya entered the courtroom again. But this time, not as a witness. As a guardian. Dr. Monroe nearly dropped her pen. What is this? My client has entered a shared guardianship agreement with Maya Lane, Graham's attorney said. Signed, certified, state validated. She can, the judge said, eyebrows raised. And she did. Monroe's lips twitched. She's still emotionally unstable. Maya stood, calm, solid. I'm not here because I'm perfect, she said. I'm here because I stayed. The judge stared at her, then nodded. We'll reconvene in 48 hours. Until then, the no-contact order is suspended. Maya stepped out of the building into the sunlight. Not free, but closer. Graham was already waiting by the car. Are you ready? He asked. I've never been less ready, she said. But that never stopped me before. He smiled. Back at the house, Eli waited at the window, whistle in one hand, puzzle piece in the other. And for the first time in 3 days, he stood, walked, and waited. What none of them knew was that Dr. Monroe had filed one final emergency appeal. And if it passed, Eli would be removed from the Wells home permanently. 48 hours, Maya said, staring at the kitchen clock. That's all the judge had given them. Not forever, not even a week. Just 2 days to prove that love could be structured, that healing could be measured, and that a woman with no formal degree could mean more to a child than a clipboard ever would. Eli stood in the hallway, watching them both. He didn't smile, but he didn't hide either. He had the train whistle again, but he wasn't using it. He was waiting. Maya dropped her bag on the table. All right, we need a plan. Graham nodded. The judge wants evidence, not just feelings. She wants something no one else could give him. Something that shows Eli doesn't just respond to me. He grows. Maya thought for a moment. Then we let Eli show her himself. They started with the drawings. Over 30 of them. Stick figures. Trains. Puzzle pieces. Smiles. Each one carefully dated by Mrs. Grant, who had secretly been documenting Eli's progress since the day Maya first arrived. This one, she said, holding up a sketch, was the first time he drew a full circle. He only did that after she taught him how to turn the train tracks into loops. Maya blinked back tears. Next, video footage, security cams, timestamps. Eli going from flinching at every sound to sitting beside Maya on the piano bench. Silent, but still. Then one clip, fuzzy but unmistakable. Eli placing a puzzle piece in Maya's hand. Saying, Ma. Graham clicked pause. That's the moment. Maya whispered, that's the boy. They compiled everything into a presentation. Old school, printed binders, color-coded tabs, each labeled, trust, touch, speech, JOY. Maya didn't sleep that night. Neither did Graham. They worked in the living room while Eli built silent train cities around their feet. By sunrise, the house felt different. Not empty, not silent. Ready. The doorbell rang at 7:02 a.m. Maya opened it. Not the judge, not the lawyer, not Monroe, just a courier. He handed her a plain envelope. Inside, a printed document. Emergency removal request. Approved. Effective immediately. Signed by Judge Laurel Haynes. Maya didn't speak. She handed it to Graham. He read it. Read it again. Today, he said. Maya nodded. They're coming today. Mrs. Grant slammed a pot onto the stove. Like hell they are. Graham rubbed his temples. We can't stop it. Yes, Maya said quietly. We can. She turned to him. We show up before they do. We go straight to Judge Haynes. Make the case in person. They'll say we're interfering. They'll say we're desperate. We are desperate. Exactly. At 9:14 a.m., Maya knelt beside Eli. He was working on a new puzzle, one she hadn't seen before. Different colors. More pieces. He held one up to her. She smiled. He placed it in her palm, then placed his hand on top of hers. She closed her eyes, memorizing the weight. They got in the car. 3 binders, 2 flash drives, 1 whistle, and the puzzle piece. At the courthouse, security tried to stop them, but Graham flashed his name, his status. His voice didn't shout. It commanded. They were escorted to the judge's office within minutes. Judge Haynes didn't smile. She was mid-60s. Sharp eyes. No nonsense. You're not scheduled. This is unscheduled, Maya said. Like love. Like grief. Like healing. The judge raised an eyebrow. Maya placed the binder on the desk. Then the whistle. Then the puzzle piece. Eli doesn't speak like other kids. He speaks in patterns, in gifts, in people. She opened the binder, showed the drawings, the video stills, the quotes from Mrs. Grant, the dates, the difference. Graham stayed silent. Let Maya speak, because for once, he knew silence was power. After 20 minutes, the judge leaned back, then asked, "Why you?" Maya answered without pause. "Because I showed up. That's not a legal qualification." "No, but it's what he needs." At 10:47 a.m., Judge Haynes stood, took the binder, didn't speak, didn't smile, just said, "I'll consider this. You'll be informed by end of day." Outside, Maya exhaled for the first time in hours. Graham placed a hand on her back. They didn't win. Not yet. But for the first time, they'd fought as one. Back at the house, Mrs. Grant opened the door to find two social workers on the porch. "Is the child here?" one asked. "No," she said simply. "He's scheduled for removal. Then you'll have to remove the memory of her, too," Mrs. Grant said, stepping aside. Because they built this house together. What no one knew was that Eli had left one more puzzle piece on the judge's desk. And on the back of it, he'd drawn a heart. 4:41 p.m. The courthouse hallways were quiet. Too quiet for how much was at stake. Maya sat beside Graham on a cold bench, knees bouncing, palms sweaty. She hadn't said a word in 17 minutes. Graham had been counting. "She's not going to approve it," Maya whispered. "She'll default to the system." Graham didn't answer, because deep down, he feared the same. Inside Judge Haynes's chambers, a manila envelope sat unopened. The binder was open, though. So was the heart-shaped drawing taped to the back of the final puzzle piece. It wasn't art. It wasn't argument. It was testimony, and it moved something in her. At 4:53 p.m., the door opened. Dr. Felice Monroe entered the hallway, legal folder in hand, and the faintest smirk on her lips. "I assume you've seen the ruling," she said. Maya stood. No, Monroe stepped closer. "Then let me save you the trouble." She handed them a printed sheet. "Final ruling. Shared guardianship application approved." Maya blinked. Graham took the page, read it twice, then smiled. But Monroe wasn't done. "She approved your guardianship," Monroe said, "but you're still under review. One misstep, one violation of code, and Eli becomes a ward of the court." "We won't give you that satisfaction," Maya replied, voice calm. Monroe stared at her. "You've won the boy's affection, but not his future." Then she walked away. Back at the house, Mrs. Grant lit every light in the kitchen. She baked 3 kinds of cookies, boiled 2 kettles of tea, and set the table for 5. "Why 5?" Eli asked softly. She turned, surprised. He'd never asked her a question before. She smiled. "1 for you, 1 for Maya, 1 for your dad, 1 for me, and 1 for someone new." "Who?" She leaned close. "Whoever you let in next." Eli blinked, then nodded. At 6:08 p.m., the front door opened. Maya stepped inside first. Eli ran. No hesitation. No pause. He launched into her arms. Not with force, but with purpose. She caught him, held him, and whispered, "I came back." Eli didn't speak. He didn't need to. He just pulled something from his pocket. The final puzzle piece. She took it, then turned to Graham. "He kept them all," she said. Graham stepped closer. "He kept you." Dinner was imperfect. The tea boiled over. The cookies were too sweet. Eli dropped his fork twice. And it was perfect, because they were all there. Later that night, Maya found a small box on her pillow. Inside, all 10 puzzle pieces cleaned and polished. And a note. "Some messes are worth staying for." At the same time, Dr. Monroe sat in her office, staring at an email from the court. Her name removed from the Wells case. Permanently. She closed the laptop. Alone. In silence. The sound she'd fought so hard to enforce. Back in Eli's room, Maya tucked him in. He placed the final puzzle piece under his pillow. Then looked at her. 1 word. Clear. Soft. Home. Maya didn't cry. She exhaled, like she'd been holding that word in her lungs her whole life. What they didn't know was that tomorrow morning, Eli would ask for something he'd never asked before, a family picture. The next morning, Eli pointed to the fridge, then pointed to Maya, then to Graham, then to himself. 3 fingers, then a 4th, Mrs. Grant, then a tap on the magnet that held up an old photo of Graham and his late wife. A cracked, fading image. But the message was clear. He wanted a new one. Maya blinked. Did he just ask for a picture? Graham finished. Yeah, I think he did. Mrs. Grant leaned on the counter, lips twitching. We'd better clean up then. That camera sees everything. At 10:12 a.m., they set up in the backyard. A picnic blanket. Eli's trains. Graham in a wrinkled button-up. Maya barefoot. Mrs. Grant holding a lemonade she didn't drink. Eli placed one puzzle piece in the center of the blanket, then blew the whistle, then smiled. Wide. Teeth and everything. The camera clicked. And just like that, they were family. Imperfect. Unofficial. Beautiful. Later that day, Maya and Graham sat on the porch. Eli was asleep inside, one hand resting on a stack of drawings. Maya looked at Graham. What now? He sipped his coffee. Will it be messy? She laughed. You? Let go. I'm trying. You're getting better. He nodded, then looked at her. You ever think about staying? She froze, then smiled. I never left. That night, Graham found something tucked into his briefcase. A puzzle piece and a sticky note. Put this one in last. He stared at it for a long time, then placed it on his desk. He'd save it for when things felt incomplete again. Across the hallway, Maya whispered a bedtime story to Eli. And then the train didn't stop, not because it couldn't, but because it finally knew where it was going. Eli blinked sleepily, then whispered, stay. Maya kissed his forehead. Always. Mrs. Grant passed by the doorway, paused, wiped her eyes, just a little, then went to set the kettle for tea. Downstairs, Graham opened a drawer he hadn't touched in years. Inside, letters, photos, pieces of a life that had once been whole. He added something new, the photo from that morning. For people. One train, one puzzle piece, all smiling. What none of them saw was the envelope in the mailbox. From a judge, stamped, final hearing, custody confirmation, tomorrow.